All right, guys, welcome to day 2 of the Empowering Visions Challenge. And I am super stoked that you've made it here. For everybody that is live or anybody watching the replay or anybody watching this in a few weeks, I'm stoked that you've made it to the second video because that means that you are on the path to achieving your next level of success, your next achievement, whatever it is that you're going after, whatever goal, vision, or dream that you have that you want to do. I'm here supporting you along the way, and I'm hoping that these tools are going to help you move the needle forward. I know that the things that I'm sharing are things that have really helped me go from a very small idea to a very large vision and be able to implement that. And the key with it is with great energy over a sustained period of time, right? When I have seen other people do their launches and they do their thing and then they crash, right? They're like, I'm like so burnt out and they're crashing. The difference is this framework really helps you sustain that higher performance, because one of my passions is the study of high performance, is going after, and one of my biggest mentors in all of this is Brendan Bouchard, who is like the high performance guy. So a lot of my training has been in that realm. And I know that this framework is very much based on that. And that's what's going to really help you move the needle and stay energized, stay in that space that you can really operate at optimal levels for longer periods of time. Does it mean that things are not going to like show up that really kind of like bump you down or take you down or tire you out? No, it doesn't mean that that's not going to happen. It just means that you are going to have the tools and the ability to get out of that rut or pick yourself up much, much faster. So that is one of my key missions with the framework. And it really was built so that I could sustain, right? So that I could go from, and at the same time, it's not even just sustaining, it's also growing the entire time, right? So that you're always improving, you're always adding value to your own identity and shifting that towards the vision that you're going after. Because if you're going after something big, you are going to have to grow to make that happen. So that's the main point of the framework, is it really helps you do that in a balanced way that brings everything together cohesively. So yesterday I talked a lot on vision. And I'm going to tap into that again today because I think it's super important that you're looking at your vision on a daily basis. I know I mentioned the book yesterday, The Magic of Believing, and really a big piece of that is to take little note cards, whether they're in your pocket, they're on the wall, they're on the mirror, wherever they are, and you have them around you so that you're programming your brain all the time. So really, when you have a big vision, a big goal, or a big dream, you have to look at it often. You have to think about it often. You have to be very much living into that moment as you're going throughout your day. So yes, while we're still present here today, we are definitely moving into and having that future self, that future vision call and pull us forward. And that's what makes it easier to sustain it, is it stops becoming this push, 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 like to try and make it happen. But that dream, that vision, that part of you is pulling you into the future. So that piece of the puzzle is super critical when we're talking about vision. Now, a couple quick things for vision that I love are either battle boards or your vision boards, whatever it is that gives you that visual. I have one on my wall. I have some 12 weeks spread out as well, or 12 months spread out as well. So I know what's coming up and I can look at that and really have an idea of what is actually happening, rather than getting stuck either in my inbox or reacting to something that's going on or dealing with the horses, right? So it's really about having that vision at front of mind often. And that is definitely, if you missed the first day on vision, go back and watch that. If not, those little pieces will help you. And having that as part of your practice is super helpful also. All right, so the main purpose of today is really to get into the strategy. So what is a strategy, right? A strategy is a plan of action or policy designed to achieve a major or overall aim, right? So it's really that plan. It's the path. It's how you're going to make these things happen. And I know I mentioned yesterday getting stuck in the tyranny of how. So when you're cultivating that vision, when you're doing that, you don't have to worry so much about the how. What's going to happen in this next phase is we're going to start putting into play a few key strategies that are going to really help you figure out the how, because basically most of the things that you've done in life have been done before, right? Maybe not to the extent that you're doing it, maybe not in the way that you're doing it, but in other forms, there is somebody that has done what you're doing. And so if you can find those strategies, those plans, the way to do it best, then you don't have to spend all of that time and energy trying to figure it out. And two, you actually have a path to get to your destination, right? So staying on the way to your North Star is much easier when you're like, oh, wow, there's a way to do this, right? So it's not when you're getting there and thinking, I've got this big vision and how in the hell am I going to do all of this, right? You're just going to start with the strategies that are going to help you then move those needles forward, move the pieces forward. So when we're talking about strategy, I have three main areas that or types of strategies that I really like to focus on. And I think that these are the critical ones when going after a vision, when you're building your dream, when you're an entrepreneur, just in life in general, right? So number one is going to be the mindset. And in mindset, we're going to go through a few pieces. I've got probably 7 or 8 different mindset thought processes, perspectives that we're going to utilize. Then we're going to talk about modeling and basically the idea of doing it the way others do it, like learning how it's the same way we learn as babies, right? We learn by watching others. We learn by seeing the process. So we're going to understand that modeling is going to be a major critical piece of this. And then the last one's going to be momentum. And the idea of strategies around gaining, starting, and sustaining momentum in the journey to making your vision happen. So when we're talking in mindset, first off, where your energy goes or where your focus goes, your energy flows. And that is a Tony Robbins tried and true quote. And it's really important because what you focus on is really what you get, right? So if you're focusing on all of the negative things that might happen, all of the opportunities lost, things that didn't go the way it's supposed to be, or if you're focusing on how overwhelmed you're feeling or that there are limited resources in your current surroundings, you're going to have a really hard time building that vision. So it's super important to know that your focus has to be on things that are going to help you move the needle forward. And they've got to be more positive things that are pulling you in the direction of your focus, right? So I love Tony Robbins' work. If you've never seen Tony Robbins or checked him out, highly recommend. He's got a ton of stuff on YouTube. He's got great programs, and one of them was actually life-changing for me, UPW. So that is just an awesome way to go to understand how you focus and what your energy, what you're focusing on is really giving you the quality of your life, right? Like if somebody has an issue, what story they're telling themselves about what's happening, where they're focusing, what the meaning is really going to dictate the actions that they take. So it's super important to be aware of where your focus is. I think when I started on this journey of personal development, I was so unaware of how negative my thought process was, right? I didn't realize that my focus was so negative. Of course, I was spinning in circles. I couldn't even see straight, right? So it's super important to understand and have the awareness of where your focus is. And then once you have awareness, then we can start really actually directing it in a certain way, right? And also when we're talking about focus, I think it's also important to think of the idea of ready, aim, fire, right? You're going to ready, aim, focus, fire, instead of just going ready, fire, because I know that a lot of people, when they're starting out, when they've got this big vision, they're just going to and they're not going to hit anything, and they're going to exhaust themselves because they haven't actually taken the focus. So I think that's another piece when we're talking about focus. It's really about being intentional with that focus. The second piece of this puzzle is a learning mindset. So I don't know if you have seen the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. If not, this will also be on the list. This book is a game changer as well. Carol Dweck is out of California. She is a phenomenal psychologist, and this is really on the psychology of success. And she studied how she realized that working with kids, um, that a lot of times they will have what they consider a fixed mindset. And a fixed mindset happens like when something happens, they think, well, I don't have the skills to do that. I already learned, like, I don't have the ability to expand, or there's nothing I can do about it. So there's a stop there. And she found that it really depends on like the learning mindset is different, where it's something happens and the kid goes, oh, well, I can figure that out. Like there's a challenge, but there's a way to overcome it. And there's a learning mindset to that. And it was super critical, she saw with her studies, of how just that critical piece really has makes a major toll on things. So if something happens, the same thing can happen to two people, and one's interpretation of it is, I'm not capable of doing that. Whereas the other one's interpretation is, well, I just got to learn how to do it. And those two thought processes change things drastically. And it's funny because I would say for a long part of my life, or a long time in my life, I struggled really in the beginning with reading and writing. And I have a learning disability that makes it hard for me to hear the actual sounds properly. So I really struggled with pronunciation and spelling. And I also was so deep into the horse world that I was not as interested in academics, even going through high school and all of that. So it's kind of funny because I almost got out of school and I kind of had like that fixed mindset of like, well, they taught me in school the things I need to know. Like, I don't need to learn anything else. And I spent a long time of my life like not engrossed in learning and thinking of it in a mastery level where you can get better at all the things you're doing, right? If you're not growing, like I said yesterday, if you're not growing, you're dying. Well, I was basically not functioning very well because I was in this like fixed mindset that wasn't, things were bigger than me. I wasn't capable of figuring it out. So I think that just the shift in your brain can change and you can learn. And then if you actually have the intention of learning, you're actually going to learn way faster and way more, and you're going to retain a ton. So it's just a small shift in perspective, and it's critical, especially if you're going after a big goal, vision, or dream, right? Like super critical. So mindset, highly recommended. The second piece, the second piece of or third piece of mindset I really like to talk about is the power of intention. So this is Wayne Dyer, the book, The Power of Intention. This is also another one which kind of also relates to the idea of focus. And it really is what your intention is when you're doing the things, right? And I think that that's a super critical piece, especially when we're building big goals, we're going after big things. It's really what your intention is, right? It's like, my intention is to add value. Well, that's going to help you go and keep going when it gets hard, right? So it's really thinking of that, and then understanding that like what you're putting out, what energy you're giving out, that's going to come back to you. So it helps you have that resilience to keep, whether it's creating content, whether it's serving others, it helps you to keep giving that out and knowing that it will come back to you in time. And then it doesn't have to come back to you from that person standing in front of you, right? So it really helps you with that resilience and helps you think in a little bit more about long-term thinking, which is the fourth piece of this that I'm going to talk about. And that is really shifting the mindset from it being just a quick, we gotta solve today's firefighting situations, to being able to step outside a little bit and be able to think longer term when you're going after something, right? That also helps you make better decisions on what you're focusing on and what your time and attention you're putting into it. Because if you're just thinking short term, if you're just thinking, I just got to get through this week, I just got to survive, you're not actually looking at the critical movers that you need to be making in order to get to the bigger vision. So it's easy to lose sight of that vision. So really making sure that our thought process and things that we're doing are in a long-term thought process, right? They're thinking farther out. And we've got to like step into this, a lot of the study about positive psychology. And there's so much behind this, and really about which goes back to the focus, it goes to the learning mindset, but it's really about thinking the thoughts that I'm having and making sure that they are on the more positive, because that's how you're going to get the energy and the ability to keep taking action, right? So we're really looking at making sure that we are developing a positive, long-term, intentional, focused mindset, right? So really getting that piece of the puzzle. I think along with all of that, something that I can tell you is super, super important piece. I don't know if it's necessarily a mindset thing, but it's an important piece, is your language. And what you say is very powerful, and our words have lots of power. And one of the things as humans that we're going to do is we are going to be congruent with what we think we are, or what our identity is, right? So as we're speaking things out, when we're not aware of the language that we're using, sometimes that can be very detrimental, because you might even say something, even as a sarcastic joke, but your brain hears it, your body knows it. So it's super critical to be aware of what words you're saying and how you're saying them and what that language means, right? So relating that back to the strategy, we're going to think of I am statements, and understand that whatever you say after an I am, you are co-creating. That doesn't mean you have to believe in the creator, but every time you're making a statement, I am something, you are co-creating that reality. Okay, so your words are crazy powerful. So when we're talking about the mindset idea, being very aware of how much I am statements create your reality, right? So they really create that goal, vision, or dream. And two last things I want to say about mindset and the perspectives that really will help you go after goal, vision, or dream. And those are, high performance is possible. So what they did with the high performance studies is it's sustaining that success and fulfillment over the long term without wrecking relationships and like physical well-being. So it is possible to attain higher levels without burning out and crashing, without losing your entire family to a like obsession, right? So there are ways to do this, and some of the tools that we're going to talk about are very much related to that, and very much to help you be able to sustain longer, have more resilience, get up quicker, and really be able to keep going after that vision. When everybody else is falling on the roadside and they're not able to keep going, you're going to be able to go that extra mile, because you're going to have the focus, the energy, the necessity, the productivity, the influence, and the courage to make that happen. So really thinking in a high performance as a high performance strategist would, and really laying out the plan of how you're going to go after this. And the last piece on mindset, we're going to talk about servant leadership. And this was like a big shifter for me, because I don't think anybody had really explained it to me this way. I know that I went to the University of San Diego and studied business, and awesome. And when I studied there, it was all about widgets and, you know, the doodads and the things, and just like very number oriented. It was more about the product and the process, and it wasn't really about really serving people and really adding value to the marketplace and really showing up as your best self. It was really just to make money, right? So then my second big experience in life when it comes to business and sales was in the horse world, which, if you know the horse world and you know horse sales, that's also a little bit of a sketchy, dicey place to play. And I think the idea, and what Tony Robbins really helped me with, because he talks a lot about this in his business mastery program, and it's really about adding that value to the world, adding that value to the marketplace, solving problems, and really being able to take that longer term, stepping back, looking at the situation and go, hey, I see this problem, I can solve this problem by doing these things, right? And that's really what this thought process and the mindset's going to help you do, is being able to show up and help others, which then you will see actually also helps you, because as the tide rises, it raises all boats, right? So as you're adding value, you're raising everybody up. So those are the main pieces about mindset that I like to keep in mind. Especially, so all of these things, when we're talking strategy, they're really going to come into play when we go to work on the habits. And we're going to do that tomorrow. But this is just kind of setting you up even for those perspectives of how to really look at things, especially when you're going after these goal visions and dreams. So the second piece of this is modeling. And I think one of the most important pieces about modeling is the fact that we have what are called mirror neurons. And mirror neurons are what, as we're learning what how the baby does the same facial expressions. And when you yawn and somebody else yawns, it is because literally you have neurons in your brain that are mimicking what you see. So this is super, super critical, because whether you're aware of it or not, so if you're not aware of it, it becomes even more of a thing. Your brain is taking in all of the things that you're watching. I don't care if it's something on Facebook. I don't care if it is the person next to you. No matter what, if you're watching on TV, the movies, your brain is taking in those mirror neurons. And we start to mimic the things that we see. So when we're talking about modeling, we have to be very aware of both the positive and negative sides to that, and really making sure that we are aware of what we're letting in our psyche and what we are aligning our intentions with, right? So that is super, super critical. And the more positive things that you can put in your brain, the better. I know that one of the things I had found was I struggled with a lot of negative thoughts, right? I had these negative thoughts in my head. I was saying negative things to myself. Something would happen, and it was just by habit that negative thoughts were happening. And part of what helped me get out of that was really having my ears, Brendan, Tony, Dean, all the guys that are just like Wayne Dyer, any of them, the ones that have this positive side of things. And it was one day something happened, and I heard in my head Dean Graziosi go, "Don't settle." And I was like, wait, where'd that come from? That's amazing. That was a positive thought. Oh my God, this is possible, right? So I think that really being aware that what you're feeding yourself is going to dictate a lot of what happens over the future, right? So that's super critical. The second piece about modeling is success leaves clues, like Tony Robbins always says. So that piece of the puzzle is that there is a way to do things. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, because when you go to do a big thing, when you're going to step out of your comfort zone, you're going to possibly hit overwhelm. And reminding yourself that there are other people that have been successful, and that really the idea is that you just got to find the way, then you can take the steps, right? So instead of focusing on going, oh my God, there's too many pieces, instead you want to find, I need to find a way to do this piece. I need to find a way to do this piece. So really being able to recalibrate your brain to be like, okay, there is a successful way. Now I just got to find the way. Like that will solve the problem. And then with that, we really want to take the idea of mentors, right? And whether the mentor is something that you're watching online that's doing positive things, whether it's somebody that you've reached out to and they're actually doing a mentor program, whether it's a good friend that is helping encourage you. We all need mentors, right? The best of the best need mentors. So just knowing that that's part of the modeling process, and something that as you're going after your vision, you're going to have to keep in play. You're going to have to make sure that you are always like getting fed by mentors around you. And of course, those mentors, they have the map, they have the path, they have the way, right? So the more that you can connect with that, you'll realize that it just takes a big weight off your shoulders, and it makes it so much easier to go, okay, all I got to do is the steps, rather than I got to solve the world's problems. No, you don't have to solve the world's problem. You just got to figure out how to solve this problem. So I think that piece of the puzzle really helps. The other thing with modeling is we're going to look at some natural laws. And the natural laws of seasons, the natural laws of karma, the natural laws of putting the work in, digging the ditches. Sometimes you're gonna have to go through some work that you're like, it doesn't really feel like things are happening. But along with seasons, there's a harvest, right? You can't just plant the seeds in December and expect them to be flowers in 2 days, right? So there's a process to this. So really modeling those natural laws and understanding there's a season, there's a way, there's a birth cycle, there are cycles to how things work, and there's learning cycles, and understanding that that is in fact a piece of the puzzle. And so when it's not happening overnight, or when you're in a different season and you're not really aware that you can then remember that piece of the puzzle, and you can go, oh yeah, different season, I'm just gonna have to wait a couple months, right? So, or I'm gonna have to do this in the meantime. So I think that is been something that's really helped me. And the last thing with modeling, we're gonna talk about understanding that you're doing a testing process. Just like natural laws have cycles, you have to be testing things. And I'm going to say this specifically to like the entrepreneurs and those that are going after creating products, creating content, creating any like artistic license, any of those things. You have to be testing. You got to make sure that you're not spending all this energy like, I got to make it perfect and it just has to be this way. It's more important to be testing a little here, testing a little here, and then you're not putting so much emotional energy into like one thing, and you're allowed to actually like make the little mistakes, because the reality is the most successful people, they've failed the most. And you've got to have that as a thought process, that you are actually going to have to make mistakes. You have to test the hypothesis. You have to actually do the scientific study. I mean, that's how scientists do things, right? They're like, I think it's going to be this way, so we're going to test it, and we're going to get all of these aggregates, and we're going to say, this is the norm. These are the outliers. These are the things that really work. So when you're going after this big vision, when you're going after this goal, you've got to test things. And maybe you're like, okay, I want to be really healthy, right? I've got this idea. I see what I look like. And maybe you want to do certain exercises. And those certain exercises are they're just not working for you. They like hurt more than you thought, or they're just boring, or there's something that's it's just not feasible. To be able to take that and go, okay, this piece isn't working. That doesn't mean that all of the pieces aren't working. It just means this piece. And being able to look at and test and say, okay, well, what if I tweak this a little bit? What if I did it a different way? What if I scheduled a different way? And just really testing to find what's actually going to help you make it happen, right? So I think that's critical when we're talking about modeling. All right, so now momentum. Momentum is actually my favorite part of this section. And I'm going to say that is because it is, much like I talk about recalibration, momentum is the other piece of the puzzle that is just so underplayed. It doesn't get enough airtime. There's not enough emphasis on it, especially when you're going after a big goal, vision, or dream. And the thing is that momentum, when you're trying to do something big, it takes a lot of energy to get it going. It takes a lot to get the train to get going. It takes all of the torque, and you've got to get the push to make it happen, right? And then once the train gets going, then it's easier to sustain, right? To get that rocket ship up off the ground, it takes most of the fuel to make the actual happen, the rocket ship take off, right? So when you're starting something, you're going to have to generate a ton of energy. It is going to seem like nothing is moving. And you're going to go, I've been putting all of this energy to make this happen, and yet I feel like I haven't gotten there, right? I don't know if you've ever seen the guys that take the big, if they're gonna split a big rock, and they start in chink, 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 and they just like make these little cracks in the rock, and enough going after the chink, the chink, the chink, the crack finally breaks open, right? And they break the rock in half. So you got to make sure that when you're going after this goal, vision, or dream, understanding there is a takeoff. There is a part where we need some massive torque, and it's okay that it doesn't look as pretty as you thought. It's okay that it takes more energy than you intended to put into that time frame, right? So don't get discouraged in that piece of the puzzle, and really make sure that you are absolutely going after the big goal, vision, or dream by maintaining that momentum. So the other thing of this is the idea of a flywheel, right? So a flywheel is this big wheel that makes things keep moving with quite a little bit of energy. So it's the same idea. As you're building this, you're going to be gaining all of this momentum, and you're going to start to implement the flywheel idea, where you actually have a lot more energy being generated with a very little bit of work to make it happen, okay? So as we're looking at the strategies, we're going to understand that it's going to take a lot of torque, and we're also going to be looking at processes to make it transfer into a flywheel ability, right? And really to have the constant recalibration aspects, because what you have to do, like even like a machine, right? As they're running a machine, what do they have to do? They've got to recalibrate. What do they got to do with your tires on your car, right? You got to recalibrate them. So anything that you're working with, anything that you're doing, you've got to recalibrate. And nobody actually made that very clear to me. I feel like I hit a lot of walls because I was never getting told, make sure you're shifting, make sure you're making this piece of the puzzle come together, and really taking that into consideration with the ability to actually gain momentum and create that kind of momentum. So that piece of it, I think, is super critical. And so with this, one of the things that has really, really helped me along the way is Growth Day. So Growth Day is Brendon Burchard's app, and I highly recommend checking it out. I actually, let me give you a link in the chat for it. The link that I have there is an affiliate link, so just know that it is an affiliate link that helps the Dark Horse Project. It is a link for a 14-day free trial of his software. And I will tell you that Growth Day has been one of the pieces of the puzzle that has helped me gain and sustain momentum. Not only that, but it gives you the strategies, the habits, and all of the pieces to really make this work. And I can tell you that having been involved in lots of groups with like Brendan and Tony and Dean and Russell and all the guys, the people that are really plugged into Growth Day are the ones that sustain over the long term. They are the ones that keep being able to show up with the energy, and they get the habits. And like I said before, the habits are the secret sauce, and you'll see that as we talk about that tomorrow. And just knowing that Growth Day, I actually have a Growth Day shirt on today to represent for it. I figured I'd do a Growth Day shirt. But that has been just a critical piece of the puzzle for me. And there's, on the app, there is one, Brendan goes live, or not live, he does an audio recording of his daily fire, right? And his daily fire is literally him coaching on a daily basis. Now, he's like one of the top high performance strategists in the world, and you're getting his training every day. And then they go live with live training classes, and there's a journaling prompt in it. There is the ability to track your habits in there. There's a plan section. So there's all these pieces of the puzzle that are super, super helpful. And that piece has just been the game changer when we're talking about really building those strategies, really having the plan, and then being able to really attack the habits. So tomorrow we're going to talk a lot about habits and how they really are the secret sauce, how they are the piece that will help you take this big vision, this goal, this dream that you're going after, and implement these strategies in a very systematic way. I know that's not that sexy. Like, I know habits aren't really that sexy. It doesn't seem like it's really the thing, but I'm telling you, it is the thing that helps me show up with great energy. It helps me stay focused, and it helps me really keep moving the needle forward. So that piece is just critical. And so I just want to share that with you guys as well. So for today, the call to action is going to be to basically to put your biggest takeaway from today on strategy in the group. Let us know what was your biggest takeaway. And then if you are a Growth Day user already, because I know there's a few of you that are, let's give some love to the Growth Day as to how it's really helped you, right? Because I think that the more people that understand and know that process, I know we're going to go through on Friday, we're going to go through the WHOOP framework. And I'm coached on a weekly basis by one of the best research psychologists out there, and that is on the Growth Day app. You all can do it as well. You all can and be on that coaching call. And it is the WHOOP framework, which we're going to walk through, has really transformed my ability to really make massive progress, to overcome all of those internal like obstacles or limiting beliefs that I've been struggling with. That process that we're going to walk through on Friday is also a process that you can walk through on the Growth Day app all the time. And that is based in so much neuroscience. It's crazy. So we're going to talk about that on Friday. But yeah, so that is my biggest things today on strategy. And I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow for habits. And yeah, I'm just super excited to see what you guys are going to create with your visions. I hope you guys are getting clarity on the vision. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys in the group. Awesome. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.